Welcome to the Cheating Channel. We hope you enjoy today's story. I don't know how it happened that we threw that damn party, because I really hated them. The guest of honor was Harrington Gibbs. He was so rich that I couldn't even imagine, and to my wife's envy. Harrington and my wife Gail had known each other at Cornell for 3 years. Harrington went to Oxford, and Gail and I stayed to continue Cornell's traditions, whatever that meant. In fact, I only met Gail after Harrington left. They broke up, agreeing that they could see other people. I earned a Master of Business Administration degree, and Gail and I eventually got married, had 2 children, and lived happily ever after until today. Harrington Gibbs returned after 20 years, richer and more attractive than ever. Grace and Harry Jr. went off to college, leaving us with the infamous empty nest. When Harrington announced his return, Gail was as excited as I hadn't seen her since college. I always knew she still had feelings for him. In many ways, this annoyed me immensely, but I tried not to show my displeasure. I wasn't as handsome as Harrington and not as rich, but I was her husband. My biggest complaint was about what happened in the bedroom. Several times, when we had truly intense sex, Gail shouted his name. Nothing ruins hot sex like a woman calling you by another man's name in the heat of passion. It got to the point where I became paranoid about being called Gibby while riding my wife. She never could understand why I lost interest in her in the midst of our wonderful romp. I never explained it to her. So, here we are throwing a party for my wife's old lover, the one she fantasizes about while I'm ringing her bells. How could I not hate this man? There were only about 20 people, but that was more than I wanted. It was a warm summer evening, and we gathered outside by the pool. I grilled several dishes, and the guests could choose food throughout the evening. I tried not to get in the way and played the role of a shy, reserved host. Of course, Harrington was the center of attention, and to add more icing to the cake, he arrived in his new yellow Lamborghini. He boasted not only about his car, but also about the $500,000 price tag that came with it. Everyone came to gawk at the car, and most of the ladies, including Gail, of course, decided to take a ride. When the guests left, I, like a dutiful husband, began collecting empty bottles and dirty dishes. Finally, only Gail, Harrington, and I were left. Oh, did I mention that Gail invited Harrington to spend the night with us? We had plenty of space since the kids were away at college. Surprise, surprise. Why don't you guys sit down, and I'll fix you something tasty to end the evening. I think we've had enough beer. Gibby, do you want a Tom Collins? I cringed when she called him that. I immediately felt humiliated. He smiled and nodded. I swear, I saw him smirk in my direction. Harry, I'll get you a gin and tonic and a salty dog for myself. You guys just relax a bit. It's been a long day. I'll be right back. For a few moments, Harrington Gibbs and I sat in silence. I had no topics I wanted to discuss with him. In search of a way to break the boredom, I claimed that I needed to disconnect the propane tank from the grill. Harrington took the opportunity to check that his yellow bird was locked up for the night. As he headed to the garage, I busied myself with the grill grates. The garages were separate from the house, a feature my father had always insisted on. As I was removing the first tank, I glanced through the kitchen window. Gail was walking down the hallway to the kitchen with a small bottle in her hand. I stopped what I was doing and watched as she opened the bottle and took out 3 small capsules. It was a bottle of Ambien, which I had been prescribed. For me, Ambien was a knockout sleep aid. 1 capsule was enough to put me out for at least 10 hours. I watched as my wife opened and poured 3 capsules into my gin and tonic. Harrington was coming back from the garage, so I finished my task and we both returned to the cozy lounge chairs just as Gail came out with our drinks. Gail and Harrington, or Gibby, spent the next few minutes reminiscing about their college days. Of course, I didn't know any of the people or places they were talking about, but I tried to feign interest, pretending to sip my gin and tonic. It was hard to drink the beverage without spilling the ice, but I managed. When the drink was finished, I noticed Gail and Harrington exchanging glances. I deliberately began losing interest in their conversation and started closing my eyes. With one final fake gesture, I drained my nightcap, set the empty glass on the table, and settled comfortably into the lounge chair. I swear I heard Gail giggle. They waited for at least 20 minutes, then carefully lifted me and carried me to the bedroom. I made some incoherent sounds, which made Gail giggle again as they took off my shoes. 10 minutes later, I was on my feet and completely sober. I was amazed at how clear-headed and determined I felt. I put my shoes back on and walked down the hallway. Gail and Harrington were in Grace's room, and from the sounds they were making, there was no doubt about what they were doing. For a moment, I wondered if Gail might accidentally call him Harry. I could easily walk into the room and end it all right then and there, but that wouldn't be any fun. When I reached the garage, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I wanted to take the Lamborghini out of the garage, but the damn car was locked and I didn't have the key. The sunroof was open, so I reached in and unlocked the driver's door. Now I could do the job, but I still couldn't bring myself to do it. I started with 3 old cans of lighter fluid. I didn't even have a charcoal grill anymore. 2 cans went inside, and 1 on the roof. I opened the trunk and the hood for better access. God, this car was beautiful. I had a gallon of paint thinner in the engine compartment, and I added a couple of cans of Coleman fuel. As I walked around the garage, I was surprised by the treasures I found. There was half a gallon of kerosene on the back seat. The interior of the trunk was doused with an almost empty can of turpentine. I poured a gallon of muriatic acid on the car's roof, which didn't make much sense since I was going to burn it anyway. To top it all off, I threw in a small box of leftover fireworks, mostly Roman candles and rockets. It would be a shame to lose Gail's Volvo wagon and my Jeep Liberty, but it was worth it. I stood in the doorway at the far end of the garage and tossed a lit flare. It took me less than a minute to get back into the house and up to the bedroom. Inside, the garage was lit up like Christmas. Gail and Harrington were still busy with their activities as I passed by their room. I took 4 ambient capsules from the bottle and swallowed them. At the last minute, I took 1 more. I wanted it to look like I had overdosed. I laid down on the bed and started laughing quietly to myself. The next thing I remember is some guy shining a flashlight in my eyes and muttering something like, "He's alive, he's alive." There was a lot of commotion as they carried me out of the house and loaded me into the ambulance. I was conscious just enough to realize that someone had cut a hole in my throat and shoved something into it. I realized I couldn't swallow and something smelled like an old Boy Scout campfire. I remember that smell. Something was burning. There were police officers, firefighters, and medics. Someone stuck a needle in my arm. Grace and Harry Jr. were sitting in my room when I woke up. I peeked with one eye to see what was going on and noticed them there. "What's going on, guys?" "Dad, you're awake. Hold on, I'll get the nurse." Harry left the room and Grace came over and sat next to me. "How are you feeling?" "I feel lousy." "What happened?" I knew damn well what had happened, but I couldn't tell anyone about it. "You took too much sleeping medication. You had a bad reaction and it almost killed you." "What the hell are you talking about? I haven't taken sleeping pills in weeks." Grace looked a bit shocked when I said that. The nurse, who returned with Harry, smiled broadly. "Well, Mr. Crenshaw, I have to say you look much better than you did last night." "What the hell happened to me?" "The best we can tell is that you took too many pills and they didn't agree with you." "I didn't take any pills. Last night I had a couple of beers and a gin and tonic. That's it." My nurse just tilted her head to the side and gave me a strange look. "What did they find in me?" "What pills?" She took the card lying at the foot of the bed and quickly skimmed through it. "It says here that you took sulpedum." "What's that in English?" "Sleeping pills. I have a prescription for sleeping pills, but I didn't take any last night." "Mr. Crenshaw, I think you should talk to someone else about this. I'm not in a position to discuss it with you. I'm glad you look better. I'll inform the doctor." Grace came back to the bed and Harry left with the nurse. "How did you guys get here?" "Mom called Harry and he picked me up on his way home." "By the way, where's your mom? Shouldn't she be here?" "She's talking to the police about the fire." "What fire? Was I asleep during a fire?" "The garage burned to the ground. The house is fine." "Did anyone get hurt?" "Just you." "I hate to say it, but I'm a little confused." I glanced out the window of the room into the hallway. Harry and the nurse were talking to a tall man in a dark suit. They seemed to be gesturing a lot, but they weren't arguing. "Do you want some water?" I heard her, but I didn't respond. "Dad, do you want some water?" Oh yes, of course. I'd love some water. It was warm water through a drinking straw. At least it was wet. There was a bandage on my throat where, I assumed, someone had made an airway. I had a small plastic tube delivering oxygen to my nose, and I felt relatively good. My throat was sore, felt raw like hamburger meat, and 4 was in my right hand. The tall man in the suit was just entering the room when the doctor appeared. After a brief conversation, the man in the suit left. Dr. Empham checked my heart and blood pressure, but he seemed most concerned about my breathing. Excessive intake of Ambien can cause severe swelling of the tongue and throat. He looked worried when I assured him I hadn't taken any sleeping pills. As you might have guessed, the doctor gave me a shot to put me to sleep before he left. Grace and Harry promised to return the next day and then departed. In the morning, my throat felt better. Before noon, they disconnected all the monitoring and support equipment. Apparently, my recovery was going well. Good morning, Mr. Crenshaw. I'm Detective Naranha. Are you ready to answer a few questions this morning? It was the tall man in the dark suit. My eyes must have watered or something because I still wasn't fully awake. I swung my legs off the bed and headed to the bathroom. The bedpan was no longer in use. My voice was rough like a horse's whinny, but I didn't care. Felt good. My throat was sore, and I took that as a sign it was healing. So, Mr. Naranha, what can I do for you? You look like you're feeling better. Can you tell me what happened last Saturday night? What day is it today? Today is Tuesday. Well, damn. Time flies when you're having fun. He tried to laugh but didn't quite succeed. Detective Naranha, the last thing I remember about the Saturday party is cleaning up and then drinking with my wife and Mr. Gibbs. We were sitting in lounge chairs in the patio. I don't know where the paramedics or whoever found me. The police found you, Mr. Crenshaw. They found you unconscious in your bed. Sorry, I don't even remember going to bed. You didn't. Your wife said you passed out from drinking too much, and she and Mr. Gibbs carried you to the bedroom. That's bullshit. I had 3 beers all evening and 1 gin and tonic before bed. 3 beers over 5 hours don't make you blackout drunk. You weren't drunk, Mr. Crenshaw. We checked your alcohol level when you were brought in. It was so low that you wouldn't even be charged with driving under the influence. Why would she say that if it wasn't true? It's complicated, Mr. Crenshaw. I'll try to explain, but you need to listen to me. Detective Naranha and I sat in silence for a few moments. I had a whole bunch of questions I was dying to ask him, but I was also afraid he might have a lot of questions for me. Detective Naranha, was there a fire at my house that night? I seem to remember firefighters being there when they took me away. Yes, your garage burned down along with the 3 cars inside it. You don't know anything about that? He asked this question with a shy tone, almost as if he were teasing me. Of course, I knew, and I tried to answer accordingly. The last thing I remember is how nice it felt to stretch out in the lounge chair after the party ended. Mr. Crenshaw, the arson investigators will be here later to talk to you, but I have one small question about the fire. Did you store any flammable materials in your garage? Yes. That's why I had the garage built separately from the main house. My father was always afraid of garage fires, and I guess I inherited that little quirk from him. The house wasn't damaged, was it? No. The fire was confined to the garage. Do you have any idea what started it? Oh yes, there's no doubt. It was arson. Someone deliberately set the fire for some reason. I probably should have been a bit smarter about the whole thing, but at the time I didn't care. Hell, I still don't think I care. I guess someone didn't enjoy the party. My witty remark brought a slight smirk to his face, suggesting that he didn't find my comment amusing. So, Detective Naranja, if this is a job for the fire department, why are you here? Mr. Crenshaw, you didn't take any sleeping pills on the night of the party. Did you? No. Obviously, I didn't need them. The hospital conducted a full examination because of your condition when you were brought in. There was a bit of alcohol in your system, but not enough to cause any problems. They found that you had been given a large dose of sleeping pills. You had a prescription for sleeping pills, which was found in your medicine cabinet. I haven't taken those sleeping pills for several weeks. I only take them when I have work problems. What did you mean when you said I was given a large dose? Mr. Crenshaw, after everyone left, our team checked the house, and we found a glass that was apparently used for your gin and tonic. The lab found traces of sleeping pills at the bottom of the glass. My wife made that drink for me. Detective Naranja didn't respond. He just sat quietly, as if waiting for a different answer from me. My wife drugged me? I decided that a direct question would get a direct answer. He nodded affirmatively, but said nothing. Do you know this for sure? Or is it just a guess? Your wife initially denied it, but she confessed after Mr. Gibbs told us the whole story. Are you saying that Harrington Gibbs and my wife conspired to drug me? Why? Well, that question made Detective Naranja squirm a bit in his chair. He was conducting a professional investigation, but seemed hesitant to tell me that my wife had drugged me in order to have sex with another man. I decided to let him off the hook. Never mind. I think I know the answer. I sincerely regret this, Mr. Crenshaw. It's always difficult to deliver this kind of information to the affected spouse. We sat in silence again. I guess that's why she hasn't come to visit me. Where is she now? Your wife is at her parents' house. Her father posted bail for her. Will there be a trial? No. Harrington Gibbs told us everything to get a lighter sentence. In fact, his lawyers almost managed to have all charges against him dropped. He put the full blame on your wife for planning and executing what happened. He claimed he had no idea what she was doing until it was all over. You don't believe that, do you? No, but he does have very good lawyers. What will happen to Gail? She confessed to everything and agreed to whatever the court decides to avoid the publicity of a trial. What exactly is she being charged with? Honestly, at this moment, I'm not sure. The responsible officials seem to change their minds regularly, I think, but I'm not certain they might be interested in knowing how you feel about all this. He phrased it as a question which I found intriguing. I think that's really something I need to discuss with her, but I'm willing to drop all charges if she agrees to a quick, no-fault divorce. That might help, but she will still face civil charges. Even though you let her off the hook, she committed a crime and must face some consequences. Let's see what you can do for her. Okay? I'll get in touch with my lawyer as soon as I can. What about the fire? He shrugged and got up from his chair. I guess I'll have to wait until I speak with the fire department staff. That same day, Harry Jr. checked me out of the hospital and drove me back home. He managed to arrange a few days off from school to help me settle in, but it turned out that I didn't need any assistance. I was perfectly capable of managing on my own. We spent a few minutes inspecting the fire damage, but we didn't discuss the situation with Gail. It was awkward for him. Seymour Schlamp, my favorite lawyer, arrived, and within 2 hours, we quickly and directly drafted a divorce agreement. I gave Gail the house and the furniture, as well as half of our money after the college tuition prepayment was deducted. Considering the tuition costs, there wasn't much left. Before Seymour left, I also advised him to file a $1 million lawsuit against Harrington for emotional distress. Seymour was more than happy to oblige, as he would receive 22% of whatever he collected. My rental car was delivered at the same time a representative from Papa John brought me dinner. There was still plenty of beer left from the party. My loving wife arrived before I finished my dinner. She didn't come in but rang the doorbell. I thought that was interesting. I cleared the kitchen table so we could talk. Harry, I feel foolish saying this, but I'm sorry for everything that happened. It was a stupid act on my part, and it had a stupid reason. I can't undo it. What exactly are you sorry for? Drugging me or sleeping with Harrington? She didn't cry, but her eyes filled with tears. Her response was weak and unclear. Both. I poured myself another beer. I looked at Gail, and she shook her head, indicating she didn't want any. Gail, why are you here? Mostly to explain what happened, but also to talk about the divorce. Let's deal with the divorce first. What do you want? I don't need the house or the furniture, and you can keep all the remaining money. That will leave you with nothing. I can't afford the mortgage, and I don't want to worry about having to sell it. I'll probably be away for a few years and won't be able to use it anyway. Okay, I'll ask Seymour to change it. Anything else? No, just make it as quick and painless as possible. Are you sure you don't want a beer? No. Harry, I'm sorry about Harrington. It was wrong and there's no excuse for it. There must be some reason. I know. I've thought about it a lot. Harrington and I always got along well. We were friends and understood each other. The sex was always great. Not just good, but amazing. And what about us? Harry, we made love. Gibby and I didn't do that. We just had sex. I know it sounds like a worn-out cliché, but it's true. Sometimes, when we made love, it felt so good that I caught myself saying his name. I knew when it happened, and I always felt awkward about it. It was a reflex I couldn't control. So you're saying I was the better lover, but Harrington was the better sexual partner? It sounds so ridiculous when you put it that way. But yes. Were you planning to leave with him? Oh hell no. He was amazing in bed, but I would never agree to live with him. You were the perfect husband, father, and provider. I would never give that up. But you did give it up. Now she was crying. It was restrained, but they were tears. It's been 20 years since Gibby and I were together. I wanted to experience the thrill of shameless sex one more time before we entered our golden years. We're only in our 40s. What the hell are you talking about? I wasn't sure if I would ever see him again. Now you're just spouting nonsense. You can babble about all the silly reasons you did it, but it doesn't change anything. You cheated. It's crystal clear. I really don't want to hear anymore. Are you finished? Yes. I'm done. I won't bother you anymore, but I know it was you. What does that mean? You burned the garage down. You set the whole thing up. I can't blame you. You were fully justified in everything you did, but you really did it. You weren't just a victim. We've been married for almost 25 years, and I know you better than you think. Are you saying I set you up? You know it, and so do I. What did you tell the police? Nothing. Who would believe me? You played the victim so well that I didn't stand a chance. I finished my beer and leaned back in my chair, smiling at her. There was no way I was going to admit to anything. Harry, how did you know that Harrington and I were having sex if you were unconscious in the bedroom? I sat there with a silly smile on my face. When the paramedics took you out of the house, you were wearing your shoes. When Gibby and I put you to bed, I took your shoes off. How did you put them back on, Harry? This keen observation made me shrug and smile. You didn't drink the gin and tonic I gave you. Somehow, you knew something was in it. You tricked us into thinking you drank it all, but you didn't. Did you? I stood up and threw the empty bottle into the trash. You knew I was going to have sex with Harrington and did nothing to stop it. What kind of husband lets his wife have sex with another man if he can prevent it? Her tearful demeanor shifted to arrogance. It was unattractive. All right, now I get it. It's all my fault because I didn't stop you. You orchestrated the whole thing to have an orgy with your ex-boyfriend, and now it's my fault because I didn't stop you. The arrogance vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Oh God. Did I say that? I didn't mean it, did I? I'm so sorry, Harry. I didn't mean that. When I said it, I wasn't thinking. I didn't mean it, honestly. I got up from the table and headed towards the exit of the room. I turned slightly to look at her. I think you'd better leave. I've had enough comfort for one day. As I entered the bedroom, I heard her crying. A few moments later, I heard the front door close. 3 months later, I was alone. I sold the house but didn't make a penny from the deal. Gail was sentenced to 3 years in prison for conspiracy to commit a crime, but the sentence was suspended at my recommendation. She now lives with her parents and works at one of the local banks. Harrington was more than happy to settle the lawsuit for $500,000. Somehow, I ended up with less than $400,000. Now I understand why Seymour was smiling. Harrington disappeared to his estate in Cornwall, where he breeds polo ponies. I don't believe he ever contacted Gail again. Once everything was settled, I was able to arrange a transfer to Dallas. Grace and Harry Jr. remained close to their mother, but I haven't spoken to her since the trial. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of Cheating Secrets. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.